This has been a hard week. Maybe it was the glorious weather that ended in a sudden blizzard. Maybe it was restarting of the war in Gaza. Maybe it was the Justice Department ignoring a judge's order with regards to deportations, and all of that before discovering the defacement of our building. There was a lot of bad news this week, and I found it frankly overwhelming. So I decided it's such a tiny thing, but I will speak about one tiny thing that I did, that I can do, that you can do, that might help in building a world I want to see. I will speak about the election for the WZO. It's nothing, it changes nothing. It won't turn back the clock of climate or rights or life lost in war and terror. And yet it is something I can do, small as it might seem. I cannot vote in Israeli elections, and if my American track record were to hold, the person I voted for probably wouldn't win anyway. But every 5 years since 1897, an organization of the Jews of the world come together and vote on priorities. It's not for the prime minister or the chief of the IDF. It's not even for a seat in the Knesset. But this organization has over $1 billion to spread around various organizations in Israel, and my vote helps determine where those dollars are spent. My vote can help send dollars to ensuring Israel is more democratic, more pluralistic, more egalitarian, more equitable. And there are other votes voting for the opposite. So I believe I can make a difference. I choose to vote reform. This is what it says. There are 20 platforms to vote on, and there are more than one which espouse similar values I would like to see. I believe the reform movement already has the infrastructure on the ground in Israel to be more successful in sustaining the progress I desire. So what does the reform platform stand for? Advocate that the government of Israel does everything in its power to maintain the ceasefire and return all hostages. To fight for the government to recognize and societal acceptance of the many diverse expressions of Jewish religious identity as legitimate and equal under the law. That includes Reform Judaism. Support government policy and societal initiatives that pursue a lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians through a two-state outcome. Influence national institutions to support a strong shared society and a democratic civil society in Israel. Curb funding for and prevent the de facto or de jure annexation of the West Bank or the resettlement of Gaza. These are things that I want the money to go to, that I am voting for. Some of the platforms I am voting against espouse a very different view for the future of Israel and would direct money in ways that are an anathema to the direction I would like Israel to move in. For example, Israel 365 Action Platform states, "Stand for Judea and Samaria. The land for peace delusion must end. October 7th proved that we've always known a Palestinian state in our biblical heartland would become a terrorist breeding ground threatening Israel's existence. The entire land of Israel is eternal homeland of the Jewish people. This isn't politics, it's truth. Israel 365 Action will fight to end discrimination against Jews in Judea and Samaria, redirect funding to strengthen these communities, and proudly educate Jews worldwide about their heritage in these sacred places. No more apologies, no more appeasement." The ZOA coalition slate states, they will globalize and promote Jewish safety and aliyah, combat anti-Semitism and BDS, defend the Jewish people's legal, historic, and God-given right to Israel, Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria, reject the creation of a Palestinian Arab terror state. Support Israel's courageous soldiers and their effort to achieve victory. Confront anti-Israel bias at the UN and other international organizations. Rebuild Jewish communities in decimated, evacuated areas and Judea and Samaria. Respect Jewish faith, values, and traditions of all the Jewish people. Strengthen Jewish and Zionist education in Israel and the diaspora. So you've seen 3 of 20 platforms. There are more that I agree with, and there are more that I disagree with. Please feel free to have a look. I'm going to turn to a slide before I get there. ZOA and Israel 365 have a special focus on Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, in opposition to a pullback which might lead to a future Palestinian state. And let me be clear, I don't know if that state will come to be. I know that Israelis are even less inclined to try at this moment than at any time in the previous 30 years since Oslo was signed. While the Reform platform speaks of strengthening democratic and civil society, which includes equal rights for non-Jewish citizens of Israel, none of these platforms speak directly to the question of Palestinians who are not citizens of Israel, other than a potentiality for a Palestinian state. It may be none of these platforms are perfect in balancing all the needs of Israeli society or my American Jewish wishes for it. But there are directions this money could go toward that I would find untenable, and directions that I would be very happy to support. I hope you will consider voting reform with me and helping support the democratic, civil, egalitarian society promised in the Declaration of Independence, but never fully realized. Yet, I want to elevate something I have not yet said, and that is the Z word. So far, I mentioned voting for the WZC and what this voting might mean for nonprofit organizations in Israel and the direction of where money will be spent, but I have not defined the acronym, and I have not talked about why Jews around the world are invited to this table to begin with. The word is Zionist, the World Zionist Congress. The vote is being sponsored by the American Zionist Movement. That's a lot of Z words all at once. Why am I uncomfortable using Zionist? Even as I have spoken many times about Israel, supporting Israel, critiquing the actions of Israel's government, the history of Israel. And yet Israel and Zionism are of a core mission, and I feel a desire to avoid mentioning Zionism. The word Zionism has been fully lionized as something evil. As the spray paint on our building states, there are people who associate Zionism with Nazism. Can you get a better understanding of evil as this? But what does Zionism mean? First, I want to name that we really should be speaking about Zionisms, as there has never been only one view. There have been Zionisms that were secular, religious, communist, revisionist, personal, nationalistic, and everything in between since the time of Herzl and his famous dream. So I will share the definition of Zionism adopted by the WZO, the World Zionist Organization, which enables one to vote in this election. It's called the Jerusalem Program. It's a little small, but I'm going to read it. Zionism is the national liberation movement of the Jewish people, brought about the establishment of the State of Israel and the views of Jewish, Zionist, democratic, and secure State of Israel to be the expression of the common responsibility of the Jewish people for its continuity and future. Foundations of Zionism are the unity of the Jewish people, its bond to its historic homeland, Eretz Yisrael, and the centrality of the State of Israel and Jerusalem, its capital, in the life and the nation, and the life of the nation. Aliyah to Israel from all countries and effective integration of all immigrants into Israeli society. Strengthening Israel as a Zionist, Jewish, and democratic state, and shaping it as an exemplary society with a unique moral and spiritual character, marked by mutual respect for a multifaceted Jewish people, rooted in the vision of the prophets, striving for peace and contributing to the betterment of the world. By the way, that sentence is wholly lifted almost entirely from the Declaration of Independence of Israel. Ensuring the future and the distinctiveness of the Jewish people by furthering Jewish, Hebrew, and Zionist education, fostering spiritual and cultural values and teaching Hebrew as a national language, nurturing mutual Jewish responsibility, defending the rights of Jews as individuals, as a nation, representing the national Zionist interest of the Jewish people, and struggling against all manifestations of anti-Semitism. Settling the country as an expression of practical Zionism, encouraging recruitment and service in the Israeli Defense Forces and the security forces, and strengthening them as the protective force of the Jewish people living in Zion, as well as encouraging full national service for anyone exempt in law from service in the IDF. That's the definition of the Jerusalem program. You have to say that you agree to this to vote at the World Zionist Congress. I am a supporter of Israel. I believe in her right to exist as a Jewish and democratic state, a homeland for the Jewish people, with the right to self-defense. I also believe that out of a love of Israel and a love of the Jewish people, I have the right to criticize and even try to change the direction of Israeli policy when her democracy is not living up to its promise. I believe we Jewish people are responsible for one another, not because we are more important than the lives of non-Jewish humans, but because if we do not care for each other, no one else will elevate our interests. All of these beliefs make me a Zionist. Yet the last time I used the word to describe myself, it shut down the conversation. I was no longer viewed as rational or as compassionate, but as an evil label. I have become uncomfortable with the word, a word much older than the state of Israel, a word much older than Jews having the power to protect themselves or to kill Palestinians, a word which described a dream for our own survival and self-actualization. When I avoid the word Zionist in describing my support and connection and love of Israel, I have allowed those who believe it to be Nazism to own the definition. There are indeed Zionists I disagree with, who I would not want to own the definition, and there are Zionists who share my vision for Israel. So I invite you, if you are comfortable with the word Zionist, define what it means to you. Do you support the Jerusalem program? Please go and vote for the platform that envisions your desires for Israel. Are you uncomfortable with the word Zionist? Why? Whose definition are you basing that discomfort on? Do you define yourself as an anti-Zionist? Why? Is it the actions of Israel or a connection with the rest of the Jewish people? Is your Zionism only focused on Palestinian liberation? What is the place and the future of the 7 million Jews living between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea? Learning about and confronting the reality of Palestinian life, narrative, and nationalism does not necessitate the negation of Zionism. It necessitates learning more, thinking deeply, and understanding the very real human conflict of these conflicting narratives. Negating one does not solve the problem any more than negating the other. What is your Zionism? Can we redefine it for ourselves and become more comfortable with the Z word? So for the last time, I ask you to vote in the WZC, the World Zionist Congress. You have until May 4th. Read up on the platforms. Pick one that helps envision an Israel you are proud to support, and vote. I voted reform. I hope you will consider joining me.